that in spite of those 11 chapters, we can't shake him. We're not big enough to shake him. And this is the point. Even Abraham, the great man of faith, our father in the faith, even though Abraham be faithless, he is faithful. What a miserable set of affairs the opening chapters of Genesis have been. We've had our decent, pleasant, perhaps even encouraging moments, but we had paradise and we lost it. We had blessing in spite of the fall, and then we force God's hand and beg him for a global spanking. We come out of the ark in somewhat of a triumph. At least we'd survived, at least by a remnant. The human family still had a story to tell. And then we blow it by the end of that chapter. We had further blessing, in spite of it being announced that our post-flood character wasn't so different from our pre-flood character. So basically we had learned nothing. But instead of grasping God's benevolent patience with both hands and living our lives in ceaseless praise, our arrogance dictated that we build a tower into the heavens, you know, where God is. Because it won't matter to us how far from the garden we travel. We simply will not give up the fight, believing ourselves to be, or at least desiring ourselves to be, gods. What do you think all these announcements are all the time? The sky is falling, the sky is falling, predicting the end of the world, the apocalypse, and then proclaiming their own ability to save us all from the coming apocalypse if we'll just give them our faith and our obedience. We never left the garden. And so chapter 11, Babel, ends with another population-wide spanking. So evil have we become, God is forced again to apply the brakes upon our depravity by disrupting our communication with each other. At least that way our evil genius could be slower, tempered. If it takes us longer to communicate our evil, then it will take us longer to act upon our evil. 11 chapters of woe, discipline, spanking, that we insisted upon. We insisted upon it. So if we read on from here and find a God who's desperate to wash his hands of us, if we read on from here and discover a God who's had enough, if we read on to be confronted by divine abandonment, we'd only have ourselves to blame, and we wouldn't have a case to plead. If God, from here on in, gave up on us, we could only conclude that there's nothing worth saving. That he doesn't give up on us can only mean that there is something worth saving. Despite what we've heard sometimes, or how it feels sometimes. And so we have Genesis chapter 12, which is the second Rocky movie. In Rocky 2, outside of the actual fight scenes, this scene that I'm about to show you is one of the most memorable, soul-stirring scenes in the movie. In fact, it's one of the best scenes, period, in cinematic history. Rocky's wife, you'll remember, Adrian, has been trying to dissuade Rocky from fighting for the benefit of his health, particularly now because they have a child on the way. But money's tight, and Rocky only has one way to provide for his family. And this isn't helped by the fact that Adrian is pregnant with her first child. While Rocky's preparing for the fight, Adrian has to work in a pet store. And because it involves heavy lifting, Adrian falls into premature labor and she collapses on the pet store floor. Well, Rocky's beside himself. His training for the upcoming fight so far has been non-existent, pathetic. Adrian doesn't believe in him. Adrian doesn't want him to fight. She fails to appreciate the world from his perspective. And now, with her on the canvas, his entire world has collapsed. The child is born healthy, but Adrian slips into a coma due to complications during the birth. And Rocky won't leave her side. He won't train. He's there at the hospital all day, every day, reading to her, praying over her, praying for her. She eventually wakens up and they bring in the baby and the family's all back together again. And Rocky, who's been doing some thinking, says to Adrian, look, if you don't want me mixing with Creed no more, if you don't want me to fight no more, we'll figure out some other kind of way. And she interrupts him, and it's this scene in the movie that has the Rocky fans first punching the air. It's Adrian that gets us to punch the air before Rocky ever does. Let me see if I can share this with you.
Why don't you go get some sleep?
Oh, no, I feel great. I feel great. Listen, I've been thinking, if you don't want me mixing with Creed no more, we'll make out some other kind of way, you know?
There's one thing I want you to do for me.
What?
Come here.
What?
Win. Win.
What are we waiting for? Take this!
And you saw the rest of the movie. It goes into his training. It's that moment. It's that moment when her faith and her support for him is finally expressed. That moment, because her faith and support has been expressed, the man now has a fighting chance. But it isn't even so much the dialogue that captures her heart. Well, it is, but it's that striking bell, isn't it? That the music, the stirring music, that unmistakable single note, and then of course Mickey's, "What are we waiting for?" Oh, brilliant! That's Genesis 12. That's Genesis 12. That sounding bell of hope ringing throughout the planet. That first break of light through the clouds after the storm. The first spring thaw in the human family, so full of promise. Scouring the earth for even a hint of faith, for a glimpse of possibility. Isn't there someone, anyone who's capable of lifting their eyes above the parapet of human rebellion and daring enough or brave enough to once again engage the divine? God looks through the fog, walks amidst the midst, through the mire of human rebellion, and finds a man who, in spite of his faults, will sound the bell of counterculture. A sound so pleasing in God's ears, Abraham will become to be known as the father of faith. Verse 1 is undoubtedly to be played against verse 4. The Lord said to Abram, go. Verse 4, so Abram went. God speaks, and man from a family of rebels faithfully responds, and that will set the scene for the rest of human narrative. That is the point in the narrative of Scripture where the human family gets back into training. The fight, well, the real fight, the final bout, that'll come later when we finally produce someone who's actually capable of winning. And what a fight that'll be. A fight that left our enemy, you'll remember, whimpering on the canvas of human history like a beaten dog. But until that final knockout, we have a few rounds to fight, and Abraham is only round one, but round one he is. But there's a few things I never get tired repeating, because I never get tired of being reminded of it, particularly because, given the nonsense that often spews from our pulpits, it seems that we need to be reminded of it over and over and over again. Especially in these narrative, thick books in Scripture. Abraham, and following him, Moses and some of the great prophets, as we read through Scripture, well, they're going to step out into the limelight. But, and I can't stress this enough, it's God's stage. This is his story. History is precisely that, his story. And it isn't that these great men and women of faith who'll appear along the way, it isn't that they have nothing to teach us. They can. But dear me, we need to get off this endless monotony of concentrating on ourselves, speaking about us. This is his story. And at least from my perspective, our people are starving for the lack of it. And they're doing all they can to make ends meet, to get from one week to the next, trying desperately to live in a God-denying world. And when they finally do get to church and come in out of the rain, they find it pouring inside. Being fed a constant diet of things like 7 steps to a healthy prayer life, 5 keys to a successful marriage, 4 paths to joy, how to be a forgiving Christian, how to be a loving Christian, how to be a joy-filled Christian, 7 points. We just can't stop from talking about our favorite subject, us. And worse, disguising and presenting our spiritual narcissism as good, healthy gospel preaching, whereby if God or Jesus actually ever make it into the sermon, they're typically only brought in to verify or justify whatever self-obsessed lesson we have for that particular week. No, we'll proclaim as loudly as possible. No way do we believe in salvation through works. No way. Now, here's our 14th lesson this year on Christian behavior. So there's no better character, no better biblical character to remind us of the very thing that we appear to be gifted in forgetting than the father of our faith, to remind us that this is about God and his word, God and his story. And that he loves us, and that he wants us, and that he was looking for Abraham, and that he found Abraham, that he so desperately tries to save us, is to his credit and to his eternal praise. as comparatively wonderful as Abraham might be, even in the displaying of his faith, Abraham is here for one reason and one reason only: to testify to the faithfulness of our God. Abraham isn't there to testify about Abraham. Abraham's here to tell us about God. This is his book, his story, his gospel, his world. We know us already. Pray tell that even if I spoke until midnight, please tell me, what on earth could I possibly tell you about the human family that you don't already know? Nothing. It's him we don't know, and who we so desperately need to know. So this, what are we waiting for? Moment in chapter 12 isn't so much that Abraham has appeared and has chosen to listen. It's that God has appeared and that God has chosen to listen, and that God has chosen to remain faithful to himself, that God has decided to keep and honor his word and remain loving toward the human family, that in spite of those 11 chapters, we can't shake him. We're not big enough to shake him. In spite of all our best efforts to convince him otherwise, he's not stopping. I don't know what age Jesus was when he first heard the voice, but this much is clear. At some point in his life, the Holy Father leaned over to him and got his attention and said to him, "Listen, there's something I want you to do." "What?" he replied. And God said, "Win. Win." And it's God who, from the cross, through the emptiness of an abandoned tomb, and down through the corridors of history, who still cries to us, "What are we waiting for?" So the opening verses of chapter 12 are to be read with an emphasis on the I. There's a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. And I will bless the nations through you. It's not the recipient of the promise, it's the promise giver. And to prove my point, we don't even get to the end of the chapter without Abraham ensuring that the human family can't get through a single chapter without blowing it. Lying about his wife and making her complicit in his cowardness. But, and this is the point, even Abraham, the great man of faith, our father in the faith, even though Abraham be faithless, he is faithful. And with all that being true, you want to talk about us? Are we out of our ever-loving minds? Pulpits ought to be stormed when they speak about us. What a waste of time. That's what we want from our pulpits. Abraham was a good man. Abraham was a faithful man. Abraham was a sacrificial man. 2 minutes after winning the lottery, he's found squandering it in Egypt. It's God who flies to the rescue. It's God who will not be dissuaded from his commitment. It's God who's the hero here. And he doesn't throw a hissy fit. He doesn't abandon us when after 5 minutes clear we can't even hold a chapter together. God, even though we are faithless, himself is faithful. It's God who will not break a bruised reed. That's where Jesus gets it from. It's God who will not snuff out a smouldering wick. He's only doing what he's heard from his Father. It's God who becomes a champion for the weak. It's God who patiently bears with us and forgives us our failings. It's God who sets our feet back on solid ground. God who, after disappointment still finds it within himself to brush us down, set us up, and sound that blood-curdling cry of hope that we have heard, that has been spoken down through the ages to anyone with ears to hear. What are we waiting for? And because it's him, because it's our Adrian, because it's him, we find the strength to get. It's not me asking you get up. It's not even your wife asking you to get up and try again. It's not your children begging you to try. It's God himself. It's because it's him we find the strength to get back up and give this enemy of ours a decent and honest fight. Thoughts, comments, questions?